All right, here we have it. The qualifier begins now. The NA FNCS is upon us, and I'm just so excited to watch these different regions jump on into the NA server, into this player base, and give us a combination of competitive Fortnite here. Again, a sample that we would only really be treated to an in-person event, an in-person gathering, but not this weekend, Taco.
No, not this weekend. In fact, I think one of our highlight teams are hybrid duos, Clix and Veno. They're looking to start things off pretty hot here. They are contested as well. Roxanne and Daxton could be looking to be the thorn in their side, and have to remember, Sandy Steps is just such an ideal location because for what it's worth, Clix and Veno, they tend to try loot this one out as quickly as possible. They like to make a play, though, for the forecast tower that spawns just a little bit north of where Sandy Steps is actually located.
I love this because you pair up, you know, the forecast tower with someone like Veno, right, who's going to make some of the strongest and best decisions when it comes down to placement. We should see, honestly, amazing results out of this duo. Let's see if they can, of course, perform. On the other side, though, the brand new drop spot, the red line rig, is fully contested right now. It does look like about 3 teams are landing in this vicinity here. Crackly and DeRoller being one of the more prominent duos here to touch down first, opting to go to the backside of the red line rig. There are some advantages, of course, of being positioned here, but there's a team on the outskirts as well, so not completely safe even in the center, in the heart of the red line rig.
But Daxton and Roxanne, I mean, this is a team that was initially marked for Sandy Steps, so to see them make this adjustment on the fly here to try and join this contest mayhem at red line rig, when there is 4, potentially even 5 teams, you look at that team that's just a little bit south as well of the red line rig, there is not that much loot or resources in general, MDF, in this wasteland area of the desert from these new POIs.
We have seen this before. We've seen teams, you know, play the wild card in game 1 or game 2, try to mix things up and then go back to their old trusty. So a team like, you know, Clix and Veno cannot let their guard down, not by any means right now, but let's focus in on what Crackley's up to right here. Farms up a good amount of metal and then immediately goes for the push right now. Tags coming in from the outskirts, and then the surprise ambush, and it is good for Crackley here to get the 2 eliminations and then turn that around immediately. But remember, he gets the pickup from the loot generated of the down body, so all advantage right now to Crackley and DeRoller.
Still has a couple of shield bubbles to play with too if Crackley feels as if he needs them, but for the time being, content to just sit on top of the box here, gets an angle onto Blanc, and that's an immediate drop. Hammer pump straight to the face, and Crackley just continuing to try and clear out bodies, make things as smooth as possible for himself and DeRoller. And Maxers, he's forced to just full-on retreat. He's gonna have to just come back for the reboot card, if anything, and he knows that Crackley and DeRoller, they're probably going to stick around because you can see that gear icon marked on the mini-map. That does mean that the Machinist is currently located here at Redline Rig, and when you get a medallion that can regen your shield up to 75 off cooldown, MDF, that's got to be ideal grabs.
Yeah, and that's the other side of this. If you are just tuning in and you're trying to, you know, wrap your head around, why are there so many teams there? That's one of the few POIs that is going to give away a medallion to you, and those medallions we saw last season can swing some pretty favorable situations your way. But let's jump in with Day and Redux right now. Rotating through the middle of the Underworld, we talked about these extra benefits of staying at a strong POI. There's no surprise that the Underworld dashes here are, of course, some of the more powerful things to take into a fight, but it's all even playing grounds here. Nitro splashes out. Okay, we're seeing the walls already being broken into, and it is on. And before they know it, Day and Redux have the advantage here. This teammate or enemy down low is dead to rights if he can't make a move. And there it is, a trade on both sides here, Taco.
Yeah, Lynn tried to see if they could try and escape, but it does come at a little bit of a price here. Day knows, coast isn't clear just yet, still needs to take care of Antonio, and Day trying to get an angle. Looking for that right-hand peek, but has to go for the reload. It's going to be Antonio with the absolute turnaround. Day and Redux with an early departure here in Lobby 1. And Antonio still might not even get to celebrate that victory because King 1 hot on his heels. He's got that Nitro Splash effect enabled. Miro gonna try and cut him off, and that will be an immediate send back here from King 1. But at the same time, NDF, the damage has already been done.
That was insane. I did not expect, you know, Tay to drop that battle right there, especially given that he had the advantage even of the camera angle, the right hand peak. Just everything going for him. So unfortunate, and it does look like I think Antonio was picked up there potentially as a cursor just vanished from the map, likely to the hands of Miro there. So that body tag actually made Miro even second guess of whether or not that was a full duo. Jump on over to one of the favorites right now. This team right here, the surprise duo, I would say, of all the combinations, Tayson and Yamzo, absolute elite individuals, not including the NAC merger. This is the most players to ever change regions in a single season. You know, give that credits to the events that have been happening here in the North America region. So very fun stuff happening right now. It's never been more exciting than this.
The key word, though, is favorites, because Tayson and Yamzo, since they linked up, they have just been absolutely dominating a lot of the competition taking place in North America. And not only that, but they're looking to keep the ball rolling. And another duo that I think has really started to shock the region is definitely Bucky and Okis. Bucky, very open on socials. I'm not going to bother streaming the event, but we know what he is capable of. He wants that redemption arc, and he's looking to find it here in Major 3. Just the fact that he made it through to round number 4, I think, has just put his signature, his stamp back on the map. They are not a duo that teams can afford to overlook.
It's interesting to see someone like Bucky make it this far into the tournament setting when there have been some given upsets, and he's, you know, hit or miss half the times, but, you know, paired up with someone like Okis, I am excited to watch. Here's one of those EU-NA duos, two just kings of their regions. You got Pink here. We got, of course, Miro, the multi-FNCS champion. This is a very, very fun duo to watch. Pink, if you remember, back in the last season, we had some very fun statistics showing accuracy of builds made while in, you know, combat settings, while in fights. Pink was one of the most accurate, so never making the mistake when it mattered most in fights. Paired up with Miro right now, if he's bringing that same kind of energy, right, to this duo, they could be one of the surprise ones, right, that come out of nowhere.
That's for sure, but again, my heart broke a little bit when I saw Pink and Vico split up, but once I saw the reason why, and the fact that Pink is now united with Miro, that is, again, just another powerhouse team that it is bound to cause some disturbances throughout the course of a lobby and just how the map is going to be able to rotate throughout it. Some action taking place from some of these search towers, but right now it's all about Ritual and Reed, but they're not going to be left standing any longer. Ozone, a little bit of an upset play here, holding his own up against the likes of some of NA's finest, and Lawrence definitely cheering his duo on the entire time. There is no better feeling, no better surge of momentum either, Monster, than watching your duo win a play like that.
We're seeing a lot of clutches from the, what I would call the underdog duos in some of these clashes here. We jump in with Snacky in Magia. Got to watch a lot of fun gameplay from Magia last FNCS finals. He pushed through the qualification of those lower brackets. If you remember, one of the last few to grab that slot. Switching up the teammate now with Snacky. Snacky, who's of course a veteran, but ever since the region's merger, he's been having a harder and harder time, you know, really picking up a standout performance as things have only grown more increasingly difficult here on the NA region. Got to be careful though. The team lurking right above. Magia has to be calling something out here, but Snacky isn't putting up walls. I was a bit concerned there. Yamzo gets a few tags. What do you think is going to happen here?
This could be a potential key in, but Yamzo and Tayson, a team that definitely just likes to collect their surge, clearly have some white heal resources. Yamzo going to toss that med kit forward. prioritization seems to be more so on just controlling the direction that that team behind them actually ends up rotating. Their backside now completely clear. They forced Snacky and Magia to essentially push even further west of their current position. So they'll have a slightly easier time whenever they enter the edge of zone, knowing that they're not going to have to necessarily worry about that duo trying to pressure them from their back. But Cold and Acorn, they've got a really nice spot currently fixated here just outside of Restored Reels, and with that thermal scope on the Hunter's DMR, Cold trying to get some connections. At the very least, he's forcing a little bit of a burn of mats from the players that he's shooting at.
These are some hugely missed opportunities right now, and I say that because Cold and Acorn have positioned himself somewhat center, right, away from what would be the congested zone, the edges. So these missed tags could come back to bite them or haunt them later in the game. We'll see. And we're going to watch a lot of Storm fights in this current state of the season. You have the Cactus, of course. Those regenerate on a very specific timer. So we're going to find a lot of teams really comfortable with taking these battles where you otherwise wouldn't inside the Storm. You know, heals aside, but look at this. We jumped away for a moment. The rotate. Ooh, Blaha gets caught there by Tayson and Niamzo.
That is a tough break and a little bit heartbreaking as well for Blaha Mixon. But again, it is only lobby 1 of 6, and it is kind of cool to see Blaha Mixon actually with their reunion tour here in Chapter 5 Season 3, given that the last time we saw them play a finals for FNCS was Chapter 4 Season 3, and they've competed in a handful of FNCS finals as a duo, so looks like they're just trying to re-establish some of that original chemistry they once had. Granted, it's going to be a little bit more difficult with Mixon operating as a solo, but it definitely is still just early enough, MDF. He does have a possible opportunity to play for that reboot ban.
See it happen. Meanwhile, Veno and Clix playing deep in the Storm right now, stoking the fire, try and get as much HP as possible here for the rotate. They're going to be exposed off that launch pad, so hopefully there isn't anyone lurking too far behind. Meanwhile, Paca's got this high ground tower pretty much positioned out. He's going to be leveled up. It does seem like with the Rift Island that's going to be popping in here any moment now.
Yikes.
Someone chop this down? What just happened?
Well, the spawn in of Rift Island, Vorteca immediately going to take that Ascender. Paco will opt to just build up ample amounts of trees for him to refarm those mats. It's really all about playing for the capture point at this current location. I mean, it's in a pretty optimal spot as well, given that their drop is at the Lavish Lair. They didn't really have to move too far away from their starting location, but at the same time, that could be detrimental for their search strategy overall. So maybe playing for the Rift Island, they're kind of just hoping another team will just look to try and contest them so they can get some damage if they still need it.
Big rotate coming out right here. Worthing to Alex. They already have 2 eliminations as well, so getting active here. Ooh, using the tunnels to hit the big rift here alongside the boost. It's going to put them in a good spot. Trying to find themselves away from the edges here.
And again, Paco, Vorteca, potentially hoping for a fight. Seems like it's definitely been delivered right on their front doorstep. Vanillas and Convic trying to bide their time. A little bit of full of berry juice going to be necessary as now Vanilla's making the drop. Top side of the cone for the time being, but again, building right back up. Seems as though Vanilla's is just content to hold this slight height position. Maybe get a few surge tags from teams that are surrounding the outskirts of that underside of Rift Island, but when you know that there's another duo directly underneath you, you can't ever feel that comfortable. And now, again, one more time, Vanilla's trying to see if they can maybe look for more of a side angle approach, potentially. Surely they're not going to want to sit for much longer here.
This is slowly becoming worse and worse right now for Convic and company. I mean, he's using a lot of material. Paco and Tekka here are already on the, way out, essentially, as they're trying to get their material. So these are two teams that are desperate for material that both haven't had the time to actually farm up just yet. And this is why Paco is recognizing, okay, I got to get these, you know, brick reservoirs locked in now before someone else does. Meanwhile, on the other side, Bryson Bolts, full-on clash up against Duke right here. Sphinx is already taken down. Bolts content with the finish here. Duke's now angry as ever. Breaking through the builds, tries to turn and burn, but not good enough there. Bryson Bolts get the elimination and the full credit for one. And that's going to set themselves up for a good mid-game now.
It's definitely a nice little refresh delivery, but the fact that Dukes is in that position in the first place leads me to believe that Sphinx had encountered some early difficulties for their search strategy. Still, plenty more games for them to play out. Again, only lobby 1 of 6, and the damage threshold for Storm Surge. Vanilla's trying to get active, but it's not the same team. It's actually going to be Flix and Pilot that Vanillas and Convic have set in their sights now. Convic looking to see if he can close in onto Pilot, but that's going to be an immediate rift out. Pilot nearly down, just needs one more tag to confirm it, but Vanillas, he's not going to be able to find it just yet.
I really, really love the aggression that we see play out, but Vanillas all of a sudden gets turned right back around on. It looks like he's already lost the effects of his nitros, and he is on the run here.
Look at the builds. He's got 3 builds to work with here. Has to hope that Convic comes up big. And Convic does. DJ
someone completely different.
Just dropped in out of nowhere, straight out of left field, honestly. And that's going to be a big sigh of relief, though, for Convic and Vanillas. Split the mats almost immediately. Just try and recuperate some of what they lost in the process. And it looks as though Pilot and Flix, they were able to bail and entirely mix in. Now going to find himself in the same position that Baja was earlier on in this match, fully eliminated. But their gameplay is still going as long as Blaha is still standing. And with that Nitro Splash in effect, might help Blaha close the gap, find a slightly better position.
You see how fast Chimp and Scissors jumped in on Blaha's box right there, by the way?
Yes.
Had he not decided to move, that was it. So very, very great decision making there to go in and get pretty much dead center right now. Hound and Mason jump on what was left of his teammates' loot here. You have options. Extra Nitro Splash to utilize here as well. Meanwhile, in the storm, hello, Buga. How are things looking for you? Looks like he's trying to hit the little reboot van here to get Aviv back in the game. Seems like things are going south for Aviv and Buga right now.
Definitely not what you would expect, especially considering that this duo for round 3, they led in first place with 676 points. Tayson and Iamzo, round 3, they were second up, but they had 541. A pretty distinct gap that is a big indicator that Aviva and Buga, they've definitely locked in on a successful strategy for themselves for as to how they want to play this competitive meta, but that is a massive setback when you have to play for the reboot this deep into the match. So many players already getting situated inside of zone. Players claiming the low ground, players claiming the edges, and they're going to have a little bit more influence for some of those late stragglers like Aviv and Buga when they start trying to rotate in for exactly where they can rotate through.
It's pretty exciting seeing Miro and Pink in such a strong position as far as overall material, loadout, look is concerned. You know, we haven't really gotten to highlight Miro in the last few seasons. But let's jump in with Rise here. No Ager, solo right now. Still somehow above the threshold with the elimination, so things looking pretty nice. All things considering here for Rise is he's not going to have too much to worry about this zone. The time to move is now. There's the rest of his teammates' loot. He's going to pick up what he can here. Oh. Like, how do you prepare for that one? You don't hear them coming. You just see the builds get broken straight into.
It's so chaotic, and poor Rise, man. He just popped one Nuka-Cola, already forced to expend his second one. A very valuable resource for a solo at that, and now he's just down to 2 final splashes. He's got at least 95 left in that Clover Fizz, but at the same time, Monster, without any sort of white heals, he's essentially forced to try and play from the backside. He's looking for a slightly later rotate, hoping that nobody notices him, kind of ending up towards the edge of zone a little bit after the fact. And I like this slow play position, though, from Rise, and wouldn't be surprised to see him come up with something big.
I just love how the Nitro Splash is so valuable. Even though he's solo, he's like, I'm not using it yet. If I can get it without it, I'm going to do that first. Seeing how there's still hope in the game here. Meanwhile, Acorn and Cold, long awaited in the storm. Nice and safe here. The first to put pressure on those on the outskirts here. Wow, holding strong though. Continuing to make very good decisions. Finding himself zone to zone now, inching his way towards the first set of placements. Meanwhile, Shadow comes blasting his way into Hound's box there. A little bit of damage as he starts to float across. Look at the elimination counts here for Ianzo and Tayson. 5 so far for the duo. 900
above as well for that Storm Surge threshold. They are sitting pretty, especially with this kind of loadout. Ianzo taking a look up, peeping where height is actually located, and now probably only a matter of time before Ianzo and Tayson look to either make a play for it themselves or just claim it outright. They've got Pink and Miro in their sights. They're gonna opt to rotate through the low ground for the time being. With so many Nitro Splashes at their disposal, they're gonna be able to pick their moment at the perfect time, hopefully. Have to wait and see how that plays out for them, but Ozone Lawrence, we saw Ozone with a massive clutch earlier on up against the likes of Reet and Ritual, and it seemingly paid off, seeing them this deep into the endgame. But Pink and Miro, they have quite the high ground build established.
I want to know whose idea was this. This
Thinking.
is a crazy ramp out. Set up, solidified right now. Aviv, super hurt, just misses the opportunity to pick up the elimination right there. A lot of damage players right here. That's a massive tag as well. So surge concerns, none for Pink and Miro right now, but finding eliminations and getting refreshes is going to be a big one on the minds right here. Meanwhile, in the low ground, Tayson and Ianzo, like virtually unlimited Nitro Splashes right now for these zones right now. There's only 3 zones left. They could pop these almost indefinitely if they wanted to at this point. Just play out the low ground positioning. Front side of zone, love where Acorn and Cold are. Also putting themselves below the terrain to not be broken into, you know, those indestructible land masses are going to be so crucial to recognize. It's the little things.
Almost wondering, well, we just found out Pink no longer with Miro. That's going to be a Nuka-Cola that he'll be forced to use as well. And it's going to actually be Bucky and Okus that have seemingly overtaken height for the time being. Granted, Bucky probably wishing he had a little bit more material count. But at the same time, MDF, this is a strong position. It's all about suppressing that secondary height. Clix and Veno seeing if they could try and make a push of their own. Bucky, though, that's going to be his last underworld dash that he had readily to use. Ianzo and Tayson as well. See them pushing ever steadily. 1 layer up, 2 layers up. And again, wouldn't be too surprised to see them try and make that same play for the high ground that we just saw Bucky and Okus go for.
And they have the maps to do it. They actually have the maps to out marathon, if you will, Bucky and Okus's position right now. Meanwhile, Pink just staying alive. Cold and Acorn from the front side of zone get the advantage of teams rotating towards them. They find Noxie here, and that's going to recap them as well. Very, very rarely do we see a game stretch this late with these amounts of duos and this much material count to work with. So we're going to see that no one is safe right now on high ground by any means, just given the amount of material count here on some of these elite duos that are still in the game right now.
And just look at all the Flowberry Fizz that Cold had there. Bucky and Okus, though, they've done a decent job so far. They've been holding their ground here up above the rest of the lobby. But again, with Nitro Splashes in effect, Monster, you have to expect that it is only a matter of time before another team decides to try and barrel through or look to possibly chop them down from height. Crackly and Roller now looking to try and control the low ground, but bam! Snacky not gonna allow that anytime. Now to Roller, he's forced to play out his medkit, and he's just trying to outlast the Storm at this point.
Yeah, he's gonna have to walk his way to the edge here to stay alive. He's just stealing away placement points while he can. Meanwhile, Acorn and Cold get broken apart here. Acorn by himself now, the prime positioning, unfortunately not going his way this time around. Finds a moment to jump onto Magia, grabs the wall, finishes him, has to defend up against Snacky, gets the finish. Those are the desperate points that he was looking for here. And Snacky, although he has the splashes here, he did not find a successful way into the build here. I don't know how Acorn is still standing, but he does remain in the conversation right here. So far, so good. Meanwhile, on high ground, Snacky finds the high ground position. Bucky and Okus broken apart as well. Okus is down now. And it's looking like all solos minus Tayson and Iamzo.
Tayson and Iamzo thought they were going to make a play for height sooner, but it seems as though they were content to just completely control the low ground instead. Tayson, again, finding another knock, just assisting alongside of Iamzo. Both of these players, though, doing such an excellent job at tarping forward. They've got completely uncontested ground playing out in front of them. It's only Acorn with 4 HP just about if they break through his shield. Acorn trying to make a massive play. Good side jump. Snacky actually going to be the one to find Tayson, though, in the feed.
Finishes him off there, and just like that, Acorn levels the playing field. Look at the HP counts. No one is safe. Iamzo falls into low ground, and now it's Veno, the king of EU here on the NA region, looking to lock in this first win potentially, but Snacky dips into the Storm with the early heal here. It was a little too early though, if you ask me. Veno walking his way, the smarter move to stay alive. It hits the shot for the credit of the elimination there in the end.
That's just extra points at the end of the day, MDF. Veno likely wasn't sure if it was going to come down to a heal-off or not, but I'm right there with you. Snacky just a little bit too preemptive with that medkit. At the same time, though, the chaoticness that unfolded, so many solos just forced to try and duke it out at the end there.
One thing we love about Veno, the confidence, right? He's been talking about how he's going to show up here on the NA region. You know what? When the pressure's on, when we're in these set lobbies here, this is where he shines best. Decision-making at an all-time peak. Congratulations to Clix and Veno with a Game 1 win here to kick off the NA qualifier. And I mean, Taco, there was a reason, right? We were looking to these EU duo hybrids.
Hey, there's a reason too why Clix and Epic would split, because Clix completely understand when it's Veno that you're looking to play with, and Veno indicating exactly what he is made of. But we've got all the action and plenty more to come, so make sure you stay tuned as we'll be right back after the short break.